to celebrate what is arguably the most famous meal in history. One of them will wash the feet of the other 12. And then he's going to predict that one of those 12 whose feet he just washed is going to betray him, and that that night he will be arrested and then put to death. You can't make that stuff up. Nobody would make that type of a story. Nobody could even think about a night when a man would wash his disciples' feet. And then lift up bread and break it. And lift up a cup and share it, proclaiming his body given, his blood shed. And then he gives this commission. You also should love one another. See, those are the three things that went on at that meal. The feet were washed. The bread and the wine was given. And this commission. And this commission is where we get the name for tonight's service of Maundy Thursday. It comes from the Greek Maundeika Novio. The new mandate. The new commandment. Love one another. We think about Holy Week. We think about Lent. And what are the big 4 days of Lent? Ash Wednesday, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and of course Easter. But let's face it, Thursday's always been kind of like the stepchild of the bunch, right? I mean, look at the attendance tonight, come on. You know, if you're going to give up one of the 4, everybody's going to say, well, kick Thursday out. But what happened on that Thursday has so much heart to it, so much of Jesus to it. There are people who will tell you that there are 2 ways to look at Maundy Thursday and this text from John 13. 2 layers to the onion. One, the passage is about foot washing. And the other is, it has nothing to do with foot washing at all. So, Jesus gathers, let's talk about the foot washing. Jesus gathers his disciples in this upper room in secret. There's no attendance, like there would be at a regular meal. You know, you go down to Bud Murphy's, the Murphy Hall, you got people running around pouring your drinks and giving you food and all this stuff, the big banquets. But you can't do that. Because there are those who want to arrest your leader and put him to death. So all of this is being done in secret. So you do not have your servants there who would normally serve the meal and wash the feet of the guests as they come in. Why would you wash feet? Let's think about where we're at and what time it is. We are in Jerusalem. We are in a busy city, and we are in the 1st century. What goes down the street besides people? Not cars. Horses, sheep, all type of animals running up and down the street, and you're walking on the same street, and you're doing it in sandals. Think about what your feet would look like by the evening meal. So you come in and get your feet washed, usually by an attendant in the house. But there is no attendant. So Jesus himself takes on, let's face it, one of the nastiest jobs in the world. Feet can get awful nasty, folks. Feet can get dirty, and they can get, well, science has proven your feet sweat more than anywhere else on your body. We just catch it in socks. But your feet are what touches the earth. It's the closest part of your body to the earth. And it's that where Jesus bends over and he washes the feet of his disciples. And here's, if you go to the Luke text, the same thing happens. They're up there, Jesus washes the feet, he speaks to them about his betrayal, and the next thing you know, they're arguing on who is the greatest in the group. They're missing. They're missing. Jesus has to bring them back. He has to bring us back to who we are supposed to be as Christians. We're not in this world to look down on anyone. That's not what we're called to do. For Jesus says, love one another, but he also tells us, as I have loved you, you must love one another. As I have done to you, you must do to each other. We are called in this world to be servants in this world, to look out for one another, to care for one another, to love one another. That is the message of Christ. Of all the things that he taught in the world, of all that he has given us. Grab hold of his message of love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor. Love each other as he has loved us. And remember that there's not a single person that is not of such worth that Christ would not humble himself and wash their feet. Even Judas got his feet washed. And we know Peter said, oh, you can't wash my feet. Jesus said, I have to, or you can't be a part of this. Well, then go ahead and wash my hands and my head as well. John wants us to catch this, though. He said Jesus knew the hour had come. With only 3 days left to live. What would he tell them? What would he talk to them about? And then it says, he loved them to the very end. He loved them to the very end. Remember, when this was being written, and that phrase comes across, we always think about the cross. And we're talking about when he came into the town at the festival of the Passovers, And while he was there, the cross was still 3 days away. And he says he loved them to the end. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things to his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God. John knew this. But there's something, a message even more powerful than just knowing that Jesus humbled himself and washed the feet. Knowing that Jesus broke bread and said, this is my body and this is my blood. There's something more powerful going on in here in his actions. When the Jews would speak of heaven, they always talked about it as a big banquet table. Heaven was a banquet table. Right? You prepare us a table before me. Jesus got up from the table and walked away from it that night in the upper room. Just as Jesus left that banquet table in heaven and he walked away from it. Then what's he do? He takes off his outer garment. Jesus is going to take off the glory of his position in heaven to come and be humbled here on this earth. And then he tied a towel around himself. He dressed like a servant in human flesh. Think about that visual imagery we see when we think of the crucifixion. Jesus, always with that little garment around his waist. Then he wipes their feet with a towel that was tied around him. He washes away the filth of other people. He washes away the sins of the world. He cleanses them. And then when he has accomplished it, he puts his garment back on. And he goes back to the table. Jesus came from God's hand. He stripped himself of all that was glorious and was given to us to wipe away our sins and cleanse us and prepare us for the banquet table. And when he was accomplished all that he was to do, he put his garment back on, his glory back on, and returned to the Father in heaven. There's a lot going on in that upper room. Things that we don't think about, things we don't remember, things we can't imagine. But what we can walk away with this is this. That night was a special night for Jesus and his disciples. It would be his last opportunity to act in servitude to them while he was with them. And it was his last opportunity to dine with them, to break bread, and to celebrate the Passover. It was his last opportunity to pray for them before he would be arrested and taken away. This is Christ's act of love for us. Now, before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that the hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off the outer robe, tied a towel around himself. He poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, to wipe them with the towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter and said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." And Jesus said, "Only one who is bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. And for this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." I invite anyone who would like to come up and sit in the corner chairs there. I can do 4 at a time. And I will wash your feet as Christ had washed his disciples. As an act of love and as an example of the servitude that Christ showed to others. So, those who wish to come. And Jeannie's going to play a song for us. And as I said, I'm not going to come out and grab you. If you don't want to come up, that's fine.